On this week's bonus round, we're visiting the Double Fine studios in San Francisco, and I'm joined by President and CEO of Double Fine, Tim Schafer, host and producer at GameSpot, Danny O'Dwyer, and President of Theory Head Inc., Adam Sessler. Okay, the bonus round is back here on GameTrailers. I'm Geoff Keighley with Tim Schafer, Adam Sessler, and Danny O'Dwyer from GameSpot. This week, we are talking about game launches, what happens when they're botched, and can companies come back from that. And this is an increasing trend I think we're seeing with a lot of games that are coming out, even games that are coming out with like day one patches that are crazy. Like I saw Halo Master Chief Collection, it's like a 20 gig day one downloadable patch. And I'm
it's not a patch anymore.
That's the game, right? I mean, it's just like, that's literally like half the game you're downloading again. And I think, you know, that mentality is something that certainly we've seen in the PC space for many years, where people can patch games, and now as more things get digital, as you download more on the consoles, that gives people the opportunity to change things. But it's also, you know, it is an opportunity to sort of change or reshape a game. And I wonder, you know, Adam, you've seen this over the years, playing a lot of games. You know, now games are services, and a game can launch one way, and then over time can really evolve into something very unique or different. And even, you know, games like, you look at like League of Legends or games that sort of started very small. Over time, they can really sort of change, adapt to the community, player feedback, and grow into, you know, massive successes.
I mean, I think the most recent example is Destiny, which, you know, the game is no longer what it was at launch. And I personally was very, very cool about this game when it first came out. And I know that there was a lot of talk that came from some people at Bungie, like, oh, you don't really understand what we have here. Right. And it is a complete... that's a very significant shift, and one that I think I'm still struggling with. That
the launch is just the first step.
Yeah, that, you know, this thing that I paid money for with all of my anticipation built up, I may not actually find that realized until a few months down the line.
Well, it's tough because that game was an example of like a $60 box product. When you look at the beta they did in the summer, and part of me thinks like they almost would have been better to just kind of keep that beta going, slowly add things, and onboard people and say we're going to respond to your feedback. Because I think one of the things that happens with these big console games is you think what ships is what the game is. And you don't expect it to change over time.
Yeah, completely.
And now Destiny, someone buys Destiny in November, they're going to probably have a different experience than, you know, someone who bought it on day one.
I think what a lot of this comes down to, not all of it, not day one patches and not you know Battlefield 4. Right. Actually, no, I take that back. But a lot of it is marketing divisions of a lot of, not just game companies, but of a lot of companies tend to be maybe the horse that is the hardest to bring down to the water. Yeah. And that they don't want to change messaging that has felt to be effective in the past, even though the dynamic that you're now suddenly presenting and trying to sell to people really is different. No one wants to kind of figure out what the catchy language is to help describe it, to do that outreach with the audience. So I can't always fault people that are trying to look at a new game from the prism of what a more traditional kind of game format was 5 years ago, and having a very hard time getting their heads around it. I mean, I definitely have suffered from the same problem, and I have to kind of chide myself. It's like, chill out, Adam.
So one thing related to that, Adam, is something that I think a lot of the gaming media sites face, and Daniel, I'll ask you about this. You know, Polygon, I think, was one of the first sites that sort of changed their review score over time, or said they were going to sort of, you know, adapt because games change. Yet, you know, Destiny as an example, you guys gave it a 6 at GameSpot coming right out of the gate. Do you think, will you get to a point where review scores can change, or do you think the way the industry is set up now is the right way, where it's like, here's your Metacritic day one, and then sort of, you know, signed, sealed, and delivered? Like, that's what Destiny is moving on.
Yeah, it's a problem that we are still struggling with, I think. Destiny was a 6 out of 10. You should have seen our first League of Legends review, because when that came out, it was completely different to what it ended up being. And then the problem is exacerbated by early access, where people are getting into alphas, where people are paying money to play a game, and by the time we get around to actually reviewing them, they could have been in people's hands for like a year or 2 or 3 years. So it's the battle between presenting the reader with our assessment of a game at a certain stage with their expectations, and then also the sort of longing from the community to have a number and a final stamp on something, which is equally becoming more and more redundant, because games have stopped becoming like this is it, and they've become these products that evolve.
It does make you wonder, though, should every developer be given that opportunity to sort of take any game, whether it's a 6 or a 4 or whatever, and be able to grow it up to a 10? I mean, Tim, what's your take from a developer perspective? Is that empowering to know that, like, hey, we didn't get that great scores, so we can sort of go back and sort of, you know, retool this?
I mean, it's something inherent in games, and I think, you know, once they were digital, you used to ship a box game,
right?
And maybe for a while you wouldn't even think about doing a patch when you were shipping a 3.5, so. You would just, you say goodbye to it and just good luck, game, and then please don't crash, and then like 3 months later they'd change to the drivers and everything would break. So, so once they're digital, you're still, our Steam store has all the games Double Fine's made there, right. And we're expected to keep them running now. You know what I mean? So just that basic change, like these are live things. So even if you're not doing a game that's changing as much as League of Legends and stuff, you're still like got to keep up with
right. Because some video card doesn't work and they complain to you. And
so it makes you think about your stuff and in a different way, right. And also think, I wonder if I change this one thing about the combat, if that would, and it's very tempting to think about it. I think if you had a lot more money, we'd all just sit there and keep tinkering with our games and making them better. And
that's in mobile space. If you get down to like what color of an item is people like more likely. Do an A/B test. It's like if this is green versus red, will people buy it more often?
I mean, obviously that's very significant when it comes to multiplayer games, to online games, League. I mean, it's just think about what World of Warcraft was when it first came out. I mean, that is not the game that exists now. It makes a lot of sense there. And to your earlier point, I cannot help but say, it's like this very discussion that you were just having. I'm so glad I'm not impressed anymore. I don't have to deal with it. But
we all are.
It's across the board.
My wife and my mother included. But it's, this really, I think, starts to highlight that maybe the entire conversation about games has to shift. It was always based on them either being a technological product or something as kind of clear-cut as a book or a film. Really, they are changing, and we're actually struggling, I think, to catch up with the right language to describe it, that maybe we do get rid of numerical scores. Maybe this idea of the review is being this kind of grand caution to the consumer that you're protecting them from making a potentially bad decision. That has to kind of go away, and it really has to become more of a discussion that has inherent uncertainty, because we don't know what the game is going to be.
No, and how it's going to evolve. Like I face that every year when you look at like end of the year, like Game of the Year awards and stuff, and it's like, should the Game of the Year just be something that shipped this year, or could it be a game from 2 years ago that now has really come into its own this year? And it's like, it's an open question.
Yeah,
right?
And people play games differently now. That people will play, like there are still people playing Minecraft who were playing Minecraft 4 years ago. There will, like Dota will be somebody's Game of the Year this year again, because all they play is Dota or Counter-Strike Go. Or
and some people say, like, well, that's not fair, these games from 2 years. It's like, but is that, how much does newness factor into it versus the fact of like, what is legitimately sort of the best game?
I mean, it's just on a higher level, it's just so weird to think of working in a medium where it changes so fast. You have to refigure out how to cover it and talk about it. You don't even know what we're making every year. Like, well, now we're making this thing that you just live in, and it's really half community, and it's half TV show, and it's evolving, and it's just like it's really more of a summer camp with a thing, and it's like, I don't know.
No, it's a conversation. I think there is value to people saying, hey, I'm about to buy this game for $60, and someone saying, hey, buyer beware, maybe this isn't exactly what you think it's going to be. And there's a value to that. I think the question is that a finite, signed, sealed, and delivered sort of, judgment on it, or can that change?
And you'd hope that most developers, when that happens, would try and fix it. I feel like Blizzard is a good example. I think they made good on Diablo 3 eventually. I think EA, when it came to Battlefield 4, on the other hand, didn't. And that's a large group of people who bought that game, very vocal, and still have not fixed fundamental problems with a game that was multiplayer only.
I think the issue with Battlefield 4, and to a lesser extent, no, not even to a lesser extent, similarly SimCity, I think in terms of something that kind of shockingly like bad, isn't the norm. That what we do have is.
They finally did add, I think, offline to SimCity, right?
It was, but that was a very challenging dance where I completely understand the frustrations of the consumer in that. What is unfortunate is because of those two experiences, people start to see that potential in almost any game purchase that's out there. The whole idea that the day one patch is somehow bad. If the people who made the game thought the game could be better, by all means, I wouldn't mind having that information.
Day one. It's eventually going to have to get fixed, so why not, have it?
Well, and it just also highlights that we need to also kind of get out of this idea that the physical disc has any value whatsoever. Because you guys were talking about Halo Master Chief Collection. I'm just going to go hit a button, get all 65 gigs just put onto a hard drive.
Exactly.
And I don't think there's. I have every reason to believe that really it could be that with Blur and all the redone cutscenes, it's just not going to fit on the damn Blu-ray.
Exactly right.
And that for all of that content, that it once again we're having these conversations and these potential sort of controversies over things like this that are absolutely mitigated if you just start to embrace the uncertain or like this new future of what games really are, which is something quite distinct from what games were or what movies, music, books, and other types.
But I wonder, creatively. For you, Tim, like you said, you can go back and tweak things. I mean, do you ever think like, it's like that joke didn't really land. Like maybe I'll change that. Like, are you getting to a point where it's like, of course,
I've never ever felt that. I've never.
Your opportunity with Grimm too.
That's right.
Yeah, we are going back to keep. Yeah, because Grimm was released on floppies, and like a couple weeks after they released a new processor that broke 2 of our puzzles, and I'm like, oh god. And we released a patch, but it was in the old days of the internet.
Hard
you remember?
to go to the BBS and download it.
Old like Game Slice days.
Yes, exactly.
But it's really ancient history of the internet, and so now we're going to go back and make it alive and fresh and play and not so stinky.
Would you ever think like Broken Age? You'd be like, let's change this puzzle, or like, because you could tinker and you could drive yourself mad.
But I always think of the Star Wars special editions, and I'm always thinking, okay, I did not like some of that stuff, so I don't want to do that.
Right.
But I would like to make it look nice and pretty. And
it's an interesting point because we do want to look at games as art, and there's something very uncomfortable about like, I'm going to fix my book. Star Wars being an excellent example, but it's like the idea that you're going to change the language to fit modern tastes is that kind of fluidity. I think it.
Like, we're just going to patch a new
people.
level. It's like that level didn't work out. We're just going to drop that level for the game, put it into.
We did. I mean, we did do that. We did the Psychonauts. We put it on PC, and we fixed some bugs in Meat Circus that made it kind of hard to play. Yeah. Not that we dumbed it down. Yeah. For certain people who had trouble with it. I'm not looking at you in particular.
Most things are dumbed down for me.
But it's pretty safe to be like, okay, like when Blu-ray's invented, look forward to getting your Blu-ray Casablanca, like just making it, modern and look nice and
I think that's fair. People see the remake, but then it's like, do you creatively go in and change stuff? And even like Grand Theft Auto 5 in the next gen version, like much when we're taping this, I don't think we've really seen much of it, but it seems like they are going in and tweaking things and changing things. It's probably still the same story, but it's like, at what point does it become a new game?
I mean, to my point, I still kind of like the idea of doing that.
Right.
There's a lot of games where if someone wanted to go in and remove the swimming levels,
right.
I would be really, really happy. Like where I knew that this broke the flow of it, or maybe Mass Effect 1 had a Mako that drives.
Yeah.
Like so, I mean, there are those times where like you
crowdsource sort of like there's going to be a Reddit thread of like the 5 things that should be pulled out of this game.
And it's just I go back and
dangerous.
forth. But the consumer in me would love to sort of see certain experiences that get streamlined because something had been learned in the ensuing year.
I mean, I think those are all very service-oriented fixes. I think of it with a mind on the player, like those kind of changes. It's not like the original creator, the one person going like, you know what I meant to do with that game? I'm going to do it now, and I'm going to take out all the guns and put in walkie-talkies and that. Like, that's not usually what game updates are. They're more just like, here's how we enjoy games now, and we like these,
That's why I just wonder, though, when press reviews something, and it's like, creatively this didn't work, or Bungie says, the story in Destiny, like maybe it wasn't that great or something. Maybe we should go back and rewrite it or something. And it's like, I don't know.
Okay, we'll give you the AI.
Turn that on. Just kidding. But it'll be interesting because now there is that opportunity, and for you as a creator, I mean, in some ways the episodic stuff, I guess, is another opportunity, like with Broken Age, when you bring out the next part. I mean, I assume some of the feedback from the first part will affect what you do.
I mean, we'd have that debate, like, is it fair to go back and change things in the first part? Because it's not really like...
What'd you decide?
Well, it's a little bit, maybe not a lot. I mean, some people are like halfway through the game.
Yes.
So you don't want to break their save game.
Right. but does it affect, though, I guess, part 2, the feedback from part 1?
Definitely
impact what you do. And that's like with Destiny, obviously, with the expansions and stuff. They, I assume, will take the feedback from, what's happened so far and impact the expansions. Same thing with Broken Age.
Yeah, and that's what's a big difference with movies. Is like if you make an episodic movie, you listen to the fans a little bit, but you still see it as like this thing we're making. But a game is so much more. It's got a little bit more consumer product in it, which means you feel a lot more like this obligation, this duty to make it work for the people who bought the first one. You know? So.
But also, I mean, I think that's why sequels tend to be received a little bit better inside of games than they do inside of film, because the understanding of the technology only improves with each iteration. You're not reinventing the wheel every time, so you tend to see a lot more focus on more nuanced elements of the gameplay and the design. That, you know, once again, I mean, how many people play, like, say, the third, you know, installment of a certain game, and we just love to have that level of polish now reflected in the first installment.
You're
of
talking
the game.
about Costume Quest 2.
Exactly.
The combat, which is so much deeper.
Everyone can go on skates now.
And everyone can
And
go
that's
on
beautiful.
skates now.
Yeah.
It's and no, I mean
Yeah.
visually
Yeah,
beautiful.
why was I doing sequels all this time? Roller skates on everything.
Roller skates and Broken Age coming soon. Stay tuned for it. All right, we'll be back next week with more right here in the bonus round on Game Trailers.